and people are just now talking about it. So I just wanted to collect my flowers on that. And speaking of that, something I want to talk to, something I've been burning on all week. The perfect fit. Like, these corporations, these employers spend all this time looking for the perfect fit, and it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, you guys are thirstier than when a person who just gets on Tinder expecting to meet their match right away. Like, do you think our fathers and grandfathers were perfect fits for the factories they worked in? Or do you think that they were just products of timing and proximity, and they just figured it out and made that career work for their lifestyle and that employee work for their business objectives? So this whole idea, like, I get it. It's expensive to train people. I get it. It's expensive when people leave, but it's supposed to happen. Like Mark Cuban said, we're all free agents. Like, people are supposed to grow and change and move on. And regardless if that person's moving on or if you're hiring them, like, you can't just see them for what they are. You have to see them for what they could be. You can't just see them for what they're not, because, like, this whole hiring process is just really fickle and it's really, like, cheap. People will not hire you. And I've had recruiters tell me this, like, that they've had candidates they've sent not get hired because they wear the wrong shoes or because of their tie. And it's like, how are you supposed to get a sense of if someone's a perfect fit from 2 marketing documents in a 30-minute interview? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And I don't really understand why so many employers elect to just let jobs go unfilled or just leave postings up for 6 or 3 months rather than give somebody an actual chance to come in and maybe develop into the perfect fit. Because along with that is the idea of, like, okay, this person needs to be passionate. This person needs to wake up dreaming about this role. And it's like, why would you want an employee that's just thinking about that one thing? Like, you don't know what somebody with different dreams can bring to the position because their perspective is different. You have to give them a chance to develop and grow into the perfect fit. You can't just expect them to come to you as the perfect fit, because if that's the case, then they're not going to grow and evolve, and your company's just going to be stagnant and stay the same and be boring and lame and corporate, which I guess is what you guys want, because you guys keep looking for the fucking perfect fit. So,
capitalism, baby.
All right. So your guys' turn. This is basically where we just kind of speak to the people, say whatever we didn't get to say anything we want to get off our chests, ruthless self-promotion, whatever you want to do. It's your time.
Well, I kind of touched on it earlier, but man, Iowa, what were you thinking? Oh my goodness. To that point about having the perfect fit, you didn't really have one in Iowa, did you? Yeah, I am needing to be up as late as a lot of people were, thinking to yourself, the results will start coming in any second now. Oh, this will be great. And then not seeing anything. It's kind of like, what did 4 years of practicing how to make a sound electoral, collection of ballots, how did 4 years not pan out the way you thought it would? Unless it was what some people think, that, there was jostling around of votes because A, there's too many candidates, and B, there's a candidate that the party doesn't want. I just find it to be extraordinarily frustrating and absolutely hypocritical and opportunistic when you have people that'll go out of their way and say, oh, the popular vote matters, and then 4 years later they'll say that same group of people will claim it doesn't. And I just think that's some of the most shameless, pathetic, just idiocy that I've ever heard, and I think that that's something that could really bungle up the election moving forward. And I know we're going to see more of it between now and the convention and probably after, but you know what? Go out and vote, for goodness sake. March 3rd is just around the corner. You've still got until February 18th to register and vote, so please register before February 18th. Get your ballot in, either go to the new voting centers that I know LA County is having all over the place. I know there's several up where I live. Fingers crossed that LA County's votes aren't a screw loose like they were in Iowa. It doesn't look like they will. It looks pretty tight. That was news that when it first broke, I was happy to kind of break it to the area I live in. But, yeah, just for whatever good deed that you always think to yourself, I'm going to try and have one of those good deeds and commit a good deed, you know, today, tomorrow, this week, this month. For crying out loud, get out of your own way and just go ahead and do it in this situation with the primary. You hear it every election cycle that this is the most important election ever. Well, you're going to hear somebody say it again. This is the most important election ever. And you're especially going to hear it with the primary more so than the general, just because this is going to decide who can actually get up there and face Donald Trump and potentially replace him as president. And I think that that's something that people need to not take lightly. They need to not think only about their own greedy self-interests. They need to consider the interests of everyone else. Just because the candidate they may be backing may be good for a select few, but may not be good for the populace at large. You know, it's kind of like you got to have the Spock thinking of the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. And I think that that's something that I've encountered a lot of with people that, you know, family members, neighbors of mine, friends, and some of it has baffled me to no end just because it's me thinking, you grew up in the same schools that I did. You went to the same schools I did, and you were taught the same dumb line of sharing is caring, and it's turned you into a damn socialist now. And yet your parents, who have only cared about themselves their whole lives, are obviously going to be voting for somebody other than the candidate that's more about, you know, building a coalition, there's that word, Kenny, coalition, building a group of people together to actually face these issues head on. And I think that's something that you have to take into account regardless of how old you are. You got to think, how is this candidate going to help everybody? And who's going to be most affected in a negative way? Because let's face it, every president we've had, somebody's affected in a negative way. It's unavoidable. But you have to weigh everything and think to yourself, how is this candidate going to be better than the wet clown that we have in office right now? And with that, I hand it off to Sebastian before I give our shameless social media plugs.
Well, I mean, actually, I was just going to do that. Well, I mean, there was no way in high hell that I was going to top, you know, one of you, let alone all three of you. And sort of speaking to your effect, Pete, you know, yeah, you know, job hunting sucks. You know, it sucks when you're 21. It sucks when you're, you know, a quarter of a century. And I have a feeling it's just going to suck to the end of time. And, you know, myself personally, I recently caught the travel bug where, you know, living and working behind, you know, a computer screen, which thank God I actually love what I do in the field of publishing. You know, I've taken into account like remote positions and, you know, sort of much to the effect of what you were saying of like Jesus Christ, these people really are searching for such a fit when they don't even need to fucking see me to know that I'm a good, well, you know, to know that I'm a, you know, a decent employee. And, you know, just sort of the tune of like, it's just kind of off-putting in a way, you know, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse into basic molecular structures, but it's like, you know, job market, fix it up. We got a bunch of people willing to, you know, do the jobs that you wouldn't even consider would get done, much less the skills that can handle it. But if you want to help aid me in this promotion, I mean, I guess I'll do a little bit of self-promotion myself, sorry. Like I said, freelance publisher. You can find me at Sebastian Schug at Sebastian Schug Publishing, located in Burbank, California. Manuscript, how do I put this? Manuscript submissions are welcome.
Yeah, okay.
So when it comes down to that, feel free to send in any particular genre you'd like. When it comes down to it, royalty rates are listed within email at Oh, wait, no, it's an email address. What am I saying? SEBOIBOOKACCT@gmail.com. I'm also available via phone at 626-393-8791 when it comes down to any of your publishing needs. But That's my shameless self-promo. now we can do a joint one. So
Yeah,
Do you wanna jump into
you can find our podcast. You can, or rather, since we're working those kinks out in terms of where specifically you can find it, in terms of social media, you can always find us on Twitter and on Instagram. We're at Mars on Life Show. We have our own hashtag Mars on Life Show. So basically, if there's anyone out there who is interested in hopping onto the show, or they have any questions, comments.
So my part 2, when it comes down to Instagram, it's at Dr. Sebi. I know, high school name, sue me. When it comes down to Twitter, it's the same thing, at Dr. Sebi, but in between Dr. and Sebi, there's an underscore. Again, sue me. It was high school. I was impressionable. So never bothered to change
You really
it.
did use like a herbalist, like Dr. Sebi. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it was a funny story for another time. But when it comes down to it, that's where you can find me as well as Ryan, and that's pretty much it.
Way over time.
Oh yeah.
So
Insanely.
this is the
Sorry,
Touchdowns and
Keith.
Tangents podcast. I can't use the mouse to push stop anyways, so it really doesn't fucking matter.
Just take out the batteries.
Worst. It's a Mac mouse.
Yeah,
There we go.
you just-
Wait, maybe it's the mouse pad then. All right, same time next week. Good News Radio Station, FBC Radio, X Squad affiliates, your favorite podcast app, Touchdowns and Tangents, at TDs_tangents on Instagram and Twitter. Peace.
Deuces.